Today on Dogmatic Gardens, we're going to plant our tomato seeds indoors to get ready for this year's harvest. Let's start growing. So today what we're going to do is we're going to do some beefsteak. We like the beefsteak tomatoes. These are just your normal cherry tomatoes. Now I do have some seeds from, it's a cherry tomato like that, but it's yellow that we get at the store. I have a harder time finding those actual seeds. So when we buy them at the store in a multicolored pack, we save the yellow ones. And then also, Roma tomatoes. So Roma tomatoes are good for your spaghetti sauces and stuff like that. So we're going to do Roma tomatoes too. This is just another one like that. We bought some Roma tomatoes and kept the seeds. So what you want to do is, I have in here some seed starting mix. This is a Pro Mix. You don't have to use Pro Mix. Just say a seed starting mix, premium organic. You just want some seed starting mix. That's all you need. Now I put it in here, so it's a little bit of water, so it's not completely dry and airy. I wouldn't say airy, but kind of dusty. So it's, I wouldn't call it real damp. It's moist, just enough where, see, it's compact, but it breaks apart, right? So, and then what we'll do is we're going to get a couple trays, and we're going to fill the trays and then put our seeds in. So let me grab some trays here. I have different sizes that I got over the last couple years. We got these ones here. Those ones wouldn't do too bad. Figure out these ones I think are a little too big to start off with. I think those are a little too big, but it could be transplanted into this after. I think that for seed starting, you kind of use up a lot of room. Now, I guess if you put a bunch of some more seeds, and then you just have to transplant quickly. But usually I use this because then I can put them in here. You put a little bit of water in the bottom here for them, and then it has a lid to keep the moisture in, so you can it creates its own moisture from the light. So maybe I'm just going to use these for now. Instead, I can fit more in here and just decide how many I plan on doing. Usually I try to plant about maybe a dozen total of all tomatoes, just based on the size of my garden area, right? So I'll try to have 2 or 3 of the small cherry type tomatoes, right? So I'll have 2 or 3 of the orange, or 2 or 3 of the yellow, and then I'll have 3 or 4 of the beefsteak, or 3 or 4 of the Romas, right? So then usually what I try to do is, basil is supposed to be a good deterrent for the bugs that like the tomatoes. So keep the space of the tomatoes apart, you know, because some of these tomatoes, they grow over 6 feet tall, right? So once it warms up, I'll show you my trellis system. But they go over 6 feet tall, so they get pretty. Even if I clip on the beefsteak and stuff like that, I clip the little stragglers there, and it's still, they get big, right? So what I'll do is I'll make a hole tomato, make a hole, put a basil, make a hole, put a tomato, right? That way I have 2 feet instead of 1 foot between them to grow. So let me get these. I think I'm gonna stick with these instead. And then I'm gonna put the dirt in. So the reason I like this, you can get this little container at the dollar store, right? So I like this just because I can work over top of it with the seed starting mix, and just lightly fill each of the little cells, right? And whatever falls over falls right back into the container. So don't make a big mess. You try not to make a big mess, right? So once you have it full like this, right, just lightly pat it down. You don't have to make it tight. You don't want it too compressed, right? So I usually lightly push it down, and you should have maybe half an inch, right, from the top if you just filled it to the top, maybe even quarter inch, right? Depends. But you don't want to push it down too much, right? Then if you notice that it goes down too much, even lightly packing it, you can always add a little bit more to it and fill it back up. It's not a big deal. Now the good thing about tomatoes is if they get leggy, unlike I showed you the video there of my kale and Swiss chard and stuff like that, tomatoes you can just transplant them and keep them. You don't have to start all over. So if they got leggy here, I just put them in a bigger container and bury it down, right? Because the tomato stems there, they make their own roots, right? So now, as you can see, I got it lightly compacted. Now I can plant, I'll put a couple seeds in each one, just sitting it on top. And then I will put some more dirt, just cover it lightly on over top. One thing good about these, they decompose on their own, right? So technically you don't even have to remove this stuff. I sometimes, if I transplant it, I'll just kind of rip apart the bottom, because once it gets wet, it gets kind of really almost like cardboard, right? So it's pretty much like a biodegradable cardboard. I'll just kind of rip the bottom part off so the roots can continue to grow down when I transplant it, rather than try to scoop out each plant from each one, right? Okay, let's do the 6 here, and then we'll do the beefsteak tomatoes. Try to put 2 in each cell there. A little bit overkill in my hand here, but just put more back. Try to leave a space between them. Because if they both germinate, you don't need to keep them both, right? You can just remove one, kind of keep the strongest one, and pull out the weakest one, or clip it. Okay, so I have 2 in each now. I don't really need all that, right? So that's technically 12 plants if they all germinate, right? And I just want 4 healthy ones, right? Now that you got all your seeds in there, all we do is just take the dirt and lightly fill it to the top, right? Don't compress it again too hard. You can lightly compact it. Okay, as long as they're completely covered, that's all you need to worry about. And then what I'll do is I can set them in here. I'll put a little bit of water. Put a little bit of water in here, right? And then I'll put the top on. Now, you don't want too much water, right? Because then you can create mold or fungus or whatever can grow on these. So you don't want too much water. So I usually just put enough water in here so the bottom of these can get wet and it can get absorbed into the soil. After 24 hours, I'll try to remove any excess water in here, because once the lid's on and the light's shining on this, it'll create its own condensation and heat the water itself. And then once they've germinated and stuff like that, you can take them out and just put them under the lights, even without this, because you don't want too much moisture, right? Then that you're going to want to introduce the fan to them so they can kind of harden up or get stronger branches and stuff and stem. So I'm not going to keep you here watching all this, me doing all of them. So if you got any questions, leave in the comment section below. Hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that bell to be notified when I post another video. And we'll talk to you later.